Back in 2011, when the Range Rover Evoque first hit showrooms, Top Gear had a lot to say about this subcompact crossover from Britain, believing that it was the softening of the Land Rover brand and heritage. But here we are 13 years later, and the Range Rover Evoque has actually become a staple in the lineup, leading to a lot of vehicles that share its identity when it comes to the exterior appearance, but also in regards to its pricing and where it's placed in the market. The Range Rover Evoque has actually grown the Land Rover brand and also the customer base, giving buyers on a stricter budget an attainable crossover that gives them the styling of a posh vehicle, but they're not spending over $100,000. In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into the 2025 Range Rover Evoque, see what this vehicle is offering at around $50,000, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a subcompact crossover that is upscale but also affordable, maybe taking a look at the Range Rover Evoque might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Land Rover of Peabody in Peabody, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Range Rover Evoque. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Jaguar and Land Rover inventory. So before we set off for this review and go to a quieter location, let's begin with pricing. The model we have today is the S, coming in at just under $50,000, placing the Range Rover Evoque in the same conversation and category as the BMW X1, Audi Q3, Mercedes-Benz GLA, Volvo XC40, maybe even the Lexus NX, and of course the Alfa Romeo Tonale. Now, a number of you are going to point out the fact that with this vehicle you are paying a premium, but keep in mind this is a Range Rover. This is not a Lexus, this is not an Audi, this is a vehicle from a prestigious manufacturer, and you are going to experience some things that you're not going to find in a GLA, in a Volvo XC40, which is why I think that the Evoque is actually a rather special vehicle in this segment. So let's head off to that quieter location and check out the exterior. In regards to the styling of the Evoque, nothing really has changed in its 13 years of existence. It looks pretty much the exact same as it did back in 2011. And this is actually a timeless design that Land Rover has incorporated into a lot of their lineup, including the Range Rover Sport and full-size Range Rover. So what you see here in the modern age for Range Rover can be attributed to this small subcompact crossover. Now, for a vehicle that does start at around $50,000 and this being the base trim, there are some key accents here that I think go a long way, but also really impress me for a model such as this, because you can go with the SE, which gives you a sportier appearance, but the S has an appearance that's most certainly respectable in its own right. Now, up front you are going to have full LED headlights, but as you can tell, you are going to have gloss black accents for the front grille that also ties into those headlights. And one minor detail that I think is actually really cool for a vehicle in this segment is that the lower bumper is also gloss black. So you have that gloss black that contrasts very well with the Fuji white paint color that we have here today. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, our model has the optional 19-inch alloy wheels, which goes very well with the Fuji white paint color, but also gives you a lower profile and sportier appearance. Now, 18s do come standard, but you can go as high as 21s. If you want the most optimal amount of comfort, I would say go with the 18s or 19s. These actually feel rather comfortable on the road. Another accent that carries over from the Velar and other vehicles in the Range Rover product line is the gloss black accents that run from the hood to the front doors. It looks really nice and sleek, but also gives you that aerodynamic appearance that this vehicle is most certainly known for, especially with its sloping roofline that's also in gloss black today. So I love the two-tone look for a subcompact crossover at around $50,000 to $55,000. With the gloss black top, you're also going to have the gloss black side mirror caps that are power folding, which is a bit impressive for an entry model for the Range Rover product line. You're also going to have turn signal indicators and, better yet, blind spot detection for added safety. Then as you make your way around to the back, you will have LED taillights, and you're going to immediately notice the gloss black badging for the Range Rover emblem for the center portion of your tailgate, but also the Evoque badge as well, and that will match the gloss black rear diffuser. So altogether, what you have here with the Evoque is a baby Range Rover Velar or Range Rover Sport. And a lot of vehicles in this market, such as the Volvo XC40, Audi Q3, and Mercedes-Benz GLA, they're just not going to look like their bigger siblings. So it makes the Evoque look more special, but also more upscale and posh, which is exactly what you would expect from a vehicle wearing the Range Rover badge. And since we're out back, let's check out the rear cargo area. Now, for the Range Rover Evoque, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 21.5 cubic feet of room, which would be very competitive with other subcompact crossovers in this market. Now, of course, it's not going to be class leading, but if you are going on a road trip with the family, or maybe you're just doing some weekly tasks, I think you can store everything back here. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And I still had a lot more room to work with where I could stack on more items. So as a daily driver, as a family-friendly vehicle, this is most certainly doable. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 50.5 cubic feet of room. Once again, being on par and competitive with other vehicles in this market, such as the Mercedes-Benz GLA and also the Audi Q3. On the right side of the cargo area, you will have some netting for some smaller items, as you can see that we have here today. This will be enough room for maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Then beneath the floor mat, you will find a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Stepping inside the Range Rover Evoque, you're greeted by power adjustable and heated leather seats for both the driver and passenger, since we do have the cold climate package equipped on our model today, which is an additional $980. This will give you features such as a heated windshield, heated washer jets, and also a headlight power wash. So most likely in adverse weather conditions or winter conditions, you'll have better visibility during those snowstorms or maybe even late at night. On top of all of this, the driver's side does have 3-position memory for added convenience, and we also have a power adjustable steering column, which does feel really nice in the hands with this leather wrapped steering wheel that's also heated. Further adding to the convenience and comfort inside the Range Rover Evoque we have today, we also have the technology package for an additional $1,400, giving us a digital rear view mirror, a head-up display, and also a 3D surround view camera, giving us better visibility when you are parking in a garage or in tight spots on a city street. And that leads me into the technology you'll be interacting with on a daily basis inside the Range Rover Evoque, because for a lot of luxury subcompact crossovers, you're not receiving the best from those manufacturers and brands. Typically, in regards to the infotainment system, but even the digital gauge cluster, you're missing out on some key features that you would find in the more expensive models in the lineup. The Range Rover Evoque kind of bucks this trend. So let's first start off with the full digital gauge cluster. I have to say, this is actually top-notch stuff, and most certainly on par with Audi's virtual cockpit and what you're going to find in the BMW X1. But using the buttons on the left side of the steering wheel, you can fully customize what you see from this screen. You can display the navigation map only, or you can go with more of a traditional layout with a 2-dial layout or a 1-dial layout. You can also just showcase your driver assistance features. This is really good stuff to see, and I'm glad that it is in-depth and also intuitive. A lot of manufacturers in this market, such as Lexus, even Volvo, they really trimmed down on their digital gauge clusters, and I just wish they were a bit more in-depth, because a lot of mainstream brands are integrating digital gauge clusters, and I think they're better than what you're going to find in some of those luxury manufacturers. But what Range Rover and Jaguar have been doing lately, this is most certainly on par with its closest rivals. But then taking a look at the infotainment system, this is where the controversy begins, even though Land Rover's interiors are starting to mimic Tesla products. So I wouldn't go too overboard with this, but I do understand why a lot of buyers are a bit apprehensive, especially since with the Defender, you still get physical buttons. So with this 11.4 Pivot Pro user interface, this is only a touchscreen. There's no buttons or dials for the dual zone climate control. All those functions are on the screen. So on both sides of the home screen, you will find quick access icons for your dual zone climate control, your drive mode selector, your navigation map, your radio settings, and then of course your camera systems. But if you want a traditional layout for like a tablet, at the bottom left of the screen, you now have all the access to your menus. So from here, you can go your wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, your camera systems, your climate settings, your seats, then of course the valet mode. Everything is within arm's reach. But I think the main concern here is the climate control settings, because you want everything within arm's reach. You want things simplified, but you will have to go through some sub menus to turn on your heated seats, and then of course adjust the fan speed and fan direction. But with the technology package, this is where the Range Rover Evoque does set itself apart from its closest rivals, because a lot of manufacturers don't give you these camera angles. So you will have a front facing camera and rear backup camera with trajectory. But more importantly is this 3D view, giving you a 360-degree view of your Range Rover Evoque. And these features are usually reserved for the compact crossover in a lineup, or maybe even a mid-size crossover from some luxury manufacturers. So to have this at around $50,000 or $55,000 for our Evoque, I think is a fantastic feature to have, but also does go a long way. For the rest of the interior, very clean center console here, which all you have is your gear selector. And at least we have that, so no push buttons to put the vehicle in gear or reverse. I at least like that and can appreciate that. But you will have a small cubby for your wireless phone charging pad, also of course maybe even a smartphone as well, and you will find a USB-C input. Then of course you will find 2 cup holders as always. And then for the center storage compartment, there will be enough room for smaller items such as a wallet or 2, a couple smartphones or other smaller gadgets, and you will find another USB-C input. Then, as I mentioned before, you will have a digital rear view mirror giving you very clear visibility looking out behind you. And then finally, to wrap up the interior of the Range Rover Evoque, you will have a panoramic moonroof, which will bring in a lot of natural light to the interior. Then quickly taking a look at the second row, I have to say this is where I think the Evoque is aimed towards a more mature audience and buyer, someone who doesn't have a family, someone who is not prioritizing interior space, because legroom actually falls short of its closest rivals with only 35 inches of legroom. So it will fall behind the BMW X1, Audi Q3, and Volvo XC40. So if you are looking for a family-friendly vehicle, you might want to go with the Discovery Sport or Discovery, maybe even the Range Rover Velar at the very least. But one thing that does surprise me though is the amount of headroom that we have here in the Evoque, considering that we do have the panoramic moonroof and a sloping roofline. This is fantastic to see because I think you can have taller passengers back here and they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. Now our model does have center mounted air vents to go along with 3-level heated outboard seats, 2 USB-C inputs and a 12-volt outlet, but optional is climate control for the second row. So that is a nice touch for a luxury crossover such as this. And if you do live that bougie lifestyle, you might want to go with that optional package. Then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Powering the Evoque we have today is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 246 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque, and it is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Much like its rivals, it's not going to exhibit the same qualities and attributes as the larger, more expensive offerings in the lineup. But I am thoroughly impressed with the Evoque's driving dynamics, handling, and more importantly, its ride comfort. Usually subcompact crossovers are missing out on a few things, not only in regards to technology, but also just its overall performance. Now obviously with this 2-liter, it's not going to be a barnstormer. This is not going to be a sports crossover experience. It's not going to feel like a Range Rover Velar, and most certainly not like a Range Rover Sport. But for a crossover that starts at around $50,000, I think it does feel rather plush and upscale for a vehicle in this segment, because when you are cross-shopping it with the Audi Q3, BMW X1, Mercedes-Benz GLA, and Volvo XC40, I think the Range Rover Evoque is most certainly competitive when you take a look at the technology, the interior layout, interior refinement, but also just the way in which this vehicle feels on the roadways. As I mentioned earlier on, we do have the 19-inch alloy wheels, and that isn't really playing around with the road noise or even just the overall ride quality. You go over the bumps and imperfections rather smoothly, so it's not going to be a rough driving experience in any way, shape, or form. When you are on some nice winding back roads or you just take some sharper corners, you do feel the body roll for sure. This does not have a sports tuned suspension. Now you can go with a dynamic handling package, which I would definitely recommend, because then you can customize the driving experience and drive modes to your liking, but also you'll get the larger 21-inch wheels, which definitely fits a vehicle with the Range Rover badge. In your normal driving mode though, steering is rather light but pretty direct, so I think when you are in the city or the suburbs, it's most certainly maneuverable. Also helps out with the size of this crossover as well, where it's not too large. I think a lot of you are going to like that. As I mentioned earlier on in this video, Top Gear did say back in 2011 that the Evoque was softening the Land Rover brand. And I kind of disagree with that because it's opened the door to buyers who typically wouldn't have looked at Land Rover in the past. But also, back in 2011, not many manufacturers were in this segment. So I think you could say the same about Audi and Mercedes-Benz for providing a subcompact crossover. But for a vehicle that doesn't share the same platform as the Defender, as the Discovery, Range Rover Sport, this still feels very high quality and very well refined. Now we are going to get an opportunity to accelerate here with this Turbo 4. And what I'm really impressed here is that you get a decent amount of low-end torque. It accelerates off the line exceptionally well for a subcompact crossover. And even with the Turbo 4, it doesn't drone, it doesn't really make that horrible noise you get out of 4 cylinders. It's actually a very quiet experience, but what I really like though is the fact that it is responsive, and that is huge for a vehicle that isn't a sports crossover by any means. Another aspect where the Evoque does differentiate itself from its closest rivals is that you do get a ground clearance of 8.3 inches, and that outclasses the X1, the GLA, Audi Q3, and Volvo XC40. While I don't think you'll be going off-road with the Evoque as you would with any other vehicle in the lineup, you do have that ground clearance when you do encounter snow-covered roadways. Also, that ground clearance does translate to the seat positioning as well. You do sit pretty high up in the Evoque, which isn't typically found in a subcompact crossover. So you have a nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways, and that helps out with the visibility you have here behind the wheel of this crossover. So you have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are super thin, so you won't have any blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Then your side mirrors are decently sized. I can see what's in the lane next to me. And then looking out back with the Evoque being a smaller vehicle, I can see what's directly behind me. Now, if you did squeeze in a third person in the center, which most likely you wouldn't with a vehicle of this size, then that person would be in the way. But all in all, for a crossover that starts at $50,000 from a prestigious and luxurious brand such as Land Rover, I'm actually rather impressed and a bit surprised, because my perceptions walking into this vehicle for the first time was that it's going to leave a lot more to be desired. When in actuality, I think someone who is in love with the Land Rover brand has always wanted to have that bougie lifestyle. You wanted to have a vehicle that drew attention. This could most certainly be that. I think in regards to the technology, the practicality, the handling and performance, the Evoque is a competitive crossover in this market and could most certainly go head-to-head with the German rivals in this segment and price range. And I do think after experiencing this vehicle today, it should be on your list of considerations. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video of the Range Rover Evoque. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.